educating all of us. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the conversation. I'm David Schuster. Across the United States, there are a growing number of people who, armed with their knowledge and a camera, are going into public spaces, whether it's a city hall or a post office or a library, and trying to make sure that police and other public servants are held accountable to all of our rights under the Constitution. Well, one of the most popular and successful of these educators is known as Long Island Audit. His name is Paul Reyes. We have featured his battle against corruption in Danbury, Connecticut on our TYT channel, Rebel HQ. And we're so pleased to have Sean with us now. Sean, welcome to the conversation.
Hey, thank you, David. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, so right off the bat, I guess my first question is, what prompted you to get into this, what's known as constitutional auditing, First Amendment auditing, and how did you get involved?
Okay, so I've been watching the auditing community for about 5 years now. And like everybody else, I have seen, witnessed police corruption on corporate media, mainstream media, as well as just all the corruption, the police shootings, all those things that are happening in the world today. But what I've noticed by watching the auditing community is that there's a lot of corruption and police brutality and corruption by city officials and public servants that doesn't get highlighted in the media. And also, there's the auditing community. They're very, there can be seen as agitators and seen as, disrespectful. So I wanted to get out there and change that narrative and change the way people thought of us and be respectful and see what kind of response I got. And my first day out with the camera, David, I decided to go try this out in March, and I got a really bad response, and they treated me very disrespectfully, and it was a horrible experience for me, and it motivated me to keep going and keep exposing corruption.
Well, one of the things that clearly sets you apart, I think, is that you are extremely calm and almost soft-spoken. Even, we show in one of the videos, you go to the Danbury Public Library, all of a sudden 5 police officers arrive. They're making all sorts of threats. One of them actually was caught on a body camera saying that he would have killed you 20 years ago. But in the face of all of this, you're able to just stay calm and stay matter of fact. How do you do that?
David, I see myself as, I see the bigger picture. I can let my emotions get involved and I get angry just like everybody else who are watching these videos, especially in the moment. 20 years ago, I would have been dead. That's so scary. But, I try and stay calm, take a deep breath, realize there's a bigger picture to this. And the corruption runs so deep into the court system, as you know, David, that, I need to make myself as calm as possible, because any little thing that I do in reaction to the police officers or the public servants, they're going to use against me in court and call me an agitator. So I make it very clear that I'm not.
And one of the things that I think you're especially good at is you're also very witty, and you underscore in a very sort of soft way that you're not a pushover. And in one of the videos, you refer to the police officer say, "Hey, Tibbetts," and he says, "It's Officer Tibbetts," and you're like, "Hey, Tibbetts," and then you ask a question. And it seemed to me as sort of a funny reminder that I think a lot of us have forgotten, that these people, they work for us. And it almost feels like in our society, we have forgotten that.
Yeah, David, I like witty banter, with police officers. If they're a little bit sarcastic with me, and, I have no problem with that. And, I tend to, give them leeway, but they do need to understand, David, that they do work for us. Every city hall I go to, I look at their budgets. I see how much they're in debt. I try and do like more than just. I don't go in there with just a camera and just to film. I try and get services, do FOIA requests, and on top of all the organizational charts for the city, it's the residents of that city, and they seem to forget that, and that's very important. And we have to underscore that. They're public servants. They're here to protect and serve us, provide us with services. We pay a lot in taxes. So we just have to make sure that we're holding them accountable, and we're promoting transparency in our government.
One of the things that has jumped out to a lot of people who may not be so familiar with what our constitutional rights are is that if a police officer just asks you, "Hey, give me your ID," you're under no legal obligation to give that unless they have a reasonable suspicion that you've committed a crime.
Correct, David. If you get stopped, just on the street, the only way that you would have to provide your ID to a law enforcement officer if you get stopped for a traffic violation, because at that point they do have reasonable, articulable suspicion that you have committed a crime, you're about to commit a crime. So, without that RAS, the reasonable, articulable suspicion, there is no law that bounds you to provide your identification to the police officers. You don't want to be in any of those reports that they're writing up. It's not a good look for you, and you just don't want to the police officers' jobs are to enforce the law, and they get promotions based on how many arrests and tickets they write. So their best interests are not in us. They're in giving you a ticket, arresting you, filling up the jail systems for unnecessary crimes. And we have to exercise our rights in a peaceful manner to stop that.
I've been surprised, frankly, by the number of times that you go out, and even some other auditors as well, where police, sure, there may be one or two who just sort of calm, who sort of understands, but the number of police officers who seem to have a chip on their shoulder and take this so sort of personally and want to dominate you or anybody else, I'm sort of surprised, given where our society is, that there's still so much of this that's out there.
Yeah, me too. When I first started doing auditing and I first started promoting government transparency and accountability, I went in this with, hey, the majority of cops are, intelligent, they respect our rights, they want to do the right thing. But as I do this more and more, and as I'm out there on the streets and out there in city halls and police departments, I'm realizing that police officers, they don't. The majority of them, they do not. I would say even the majority do not care. They don't know the laws. I've run into police officers that don't know what reasonable article of suspicion is. They think that they can identify you just because they're law enforcement. It's really scary, the amount of, how they don't understand the law that they swore an oath to protect. Very scary.
Yeah, and it almost seems to me, the key here is that they should be de-escalating, right? The best way to get information out of somebody is to be nice. And it seems like there's something about our police culture where police are sort of trained maybe, or it's part of their culture to dominate somebody. You have to dominate them. You have to take control. And even if that means trampling on their constitutional rights, there is an argument that has been made against auditors in general that you're catching people off guard, that you're surprising public servants. Is there a fair criticism to that?
I would say no, because when you take a job for the public, you should be expected to deal with the public on a daily basis and treat the public with respect and courtesy and assist us. This is why they get paid from our tax dollars, David, and they need to understand that they work for us. It doesn't mean that it has to be a tumultuous relationship between us. It just means that you have to respect our rights, de-escalate the situation. What you said is very key. It's not only just de-escalation, it's taught in police departments all throughout the United States for a reason, because it's for the officer's safety as well. Because if you go in there guns blazing and you start being disrespectful, you don't know who you're who you're running into in this encounter. So it can be very dangerous for them, and de-escalation is key, and treating people with respect is key. I'll tell you what, if I was on camera and I knew somebody was recording me at my job at a public facility, I would be on my best behavior to show that this city, to represent my city, to represent myself, my community, for sure.
Some of the communities, though, are sort of doubling down, it seems like, on their own corruption. You have a couple legal skirmishes that are out there. What, for people who want to help you, what can people do who may not live in Connecticut or New Jersey or New York? What do people do who say, hey, I like this Sean Paul Reyes and what he's trying to do to educate all of us about the Constitution. How can I help?
Well, the most important way that you can help is, I'm a big supporter of the First Amendment, as you know, and in the First Amendment, we have the right to redress our grievances to our government. So, sending letters, sending emails, making phone calls to your to the government. And just because you don't live in the area doesn't mean that it's not your government. We're all part of the same government. Every municipality and village, they receive federal tax dollars that we all pay. Or when I go visit these places, I engage and pay taxes on hotels, gas, I go out to dinners. I'm trying to do what's best for the community. I also have a GoFundMe page that you can look up, Long Island Audit, and that will help my legal defenses, because they don't, as you know, David, they're not backing down, and I'm gonna have to fight them with everything I got.
Yeah, it seems like that shaming public servants seems to be one of the only ways that really sort of works. But let's suppose in one of these communities where you've had these battles, and I won't name one in particular, although I have one in mind. But let's suppose that the police and the state attorney, the state prosecutor said, you know what? We are humiliated. We are ashamed of what we've done. Clearly, we need to retrain people in terms of how to respect First Amendment auditors, to respect people's constitutional rights. Will you help us, the police department, the community, in terms of training our frontline people on how to interact with the public so that everybody is respected? Is that the sort of thing you would agree to do?
I would love to do that, David. I love to engage in dialogue with law enforcement and public officials. There's plenty of videos where it shows me engaging in dialogue and answering their questions. And, I would love to do that. Go to police station, and say, hey, listen, and I would highlight them for doing that. And it's a lot. People like to highlight the bad cops and bad law enforcement, bad public officials. I also like to highlight the good ones. I've spoken to police chiefs, mayors from all around the Northeast area, and I'm planning to branch out to other states as well. But it's very key to highlight the good ones, because at times the good police officers and the people who honor our rights, respect our rights and honor their oaths to the Constitution, they're scared to go against the grain, the police unions, their bosses. So it's very important to highlight them and give them, kudos when it's due, for sure.
And finally, Sean, real quickly, I know a number of people have praised your camera work is amazing in these videos. What kind of camera are you using?
Well, I just use a Galaxy Z Fold 2, and I just keep my hands really steady. And I love a good shot. I love the way I frame it, and I want to make sure it's good for everybody to see, for sure.
Well, I would be shaking like a leaf if I was in some of the situations that you were in. But you can find him, Long Island Audit, on YouTube. Sean Paul Reyes. Good luck, Sean, and thanks for being on the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, David. I really appreciate it.